Hello and welcome back to Lord of the Collections. We are back after a bit of a hiatus. We are back at it, showcasing some of the best collections around the world. I'm your host, Tyler Macklem, and this is my co-host, Val Christ. And we're joined today by, let me get this right, Celaglar. Celaglar.
I'm told it should be Celaglar,
Celaglar. Okay, there we go. I've always wondered.
similar to Celeborn,
Oh, okay.
right?
Now you
So
know.
I think
Yeah.
years ago somebody who told me that they could translate in Elvish translated my real name Robin, which means bright fame, and they translated I think it's in Sindar or to Celaglar. No idea if it's correct, but I've used it ever since.
Right on. So, how long have you been collecting?
That's depends on what collecting means, but I started I think around when the extended editions of Lord of the Rings came out, and I actually found a gift set with a Gollum piece because I missed out on the Argonath, and I was 13 or 14 at the time. So I had a gift set of the Two Towers and then Return of the King as well. I think I bought them simultaneously. So I think those were my first pieces, and ever since I've sort of collected very slowly. So some years later, some stuff, but I think I actually really got into collecting when I got a job, which meant that I had money to buy something.
That helps.
And then looked around in secondhand markets, and even after a while, I went to New Zealand and brought back several of the items from the Weta Cave itself. And then I joined the Flame of Wooden forum in 2017, and then it all exploded. So I blame those guys.
Right on. Very cool. Yeah, that little Gollum that comes with the Two Towers, that's a staple, I think, of any collection, is that little guy.
Yeah.
So
I actually had a second one a couple of years later because I found on Marktplaats, which is the local eBay here in the Netherlands, I found a set of Gollum and Smeagol together for 16 euros.
Oh, nice.
Which is, so I jumped that one, of course, but that meant I had the Smeagol one, I had double. So I gave it away, but there was a time when I had two.
Oh yeah. There's a nice, I think Into Darkness has a nice, I like what he did with his, where he stuck them both on like a Weta style oval base. And he's got them both displayed together. I think that's a cool way to display those two guys.
Yeah, I have them together. You just cannot see them at the moment because they're right behind me, I think. But later on, you will see them.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. So, what was it about that little statue that made you start collecting? Like you just saw it, and I'm like, well, he looks lonely. I need to have more. And you started to find out that there was a bunch of stuff out there, and it kind of looked cool. And like, why is it that you collect?
I just like that it somehow represented. It made it a bit more tangible. So of course you have the books where you can join yourself in the story, and you have the movies, but having something physical in your room made it more tangible for me. There was actually a very small store in my hometown, Delft, which is called Elf Fantasy, which is a very small store, and they had tons of collectibles and stuff, but they just stopped one day, and they had a discount every day of 5%. And I used to go there and just watched those collectibles, and one of them was the Morgul Lord, which I really wanted to have at that time. And then, well, they stopped, and they had a discount of 5% every day. So I waited until the last day of the sale, where they went up to 70%, and that's when I went to check to see if the Morgul Lord was still there, and of course he wasn't. But I ended up with the Ringwraith sword and Helm's Deep and Edoras for a total of 180 euros, I think, together at the time. So I borrowed some money from my mother, and but that little store, made me want to collect because it looked just so awesome.
Very cool. Yeah. Are they still around?
not as a store because they stopped, but they have a festival which is now changed by name, but they have the Elf Fantasy Fair, which I went to a couple of times when John Noble and Alan Lee came over there. But I don't think that they're still around as a company or whatever.
Right. Yeah. So talking about the movies, obviously, what got us all into this. Well, before the movies, I was a fan of the book, but never in my wildest dreams did I ever think that, I'd have this big collection of statues and swords and props and stuff like that. But speaking to them specifically, is there a favorite movie that you have?
Fellowship of the Ring.
Three?
Because for me, it all started with the movies. I knew about the book because my dad had read it, but I was 12 years old when the movie came out. So before that, I hadn't really tried the book or even looked at it. And I know my teacher in 8th grade told me about it, but he didn't make it very attractive. So for me, the movie was the first contact with the work of Tolkien, and so everything that the Fellowship of the Ring started with me is still what I feel when I see that movie. And even though I really love Two Towers, Return of the King, Fellowship is still my favorite. Also due to all these set pieces, environments, and I've been to New Zealand twice now, and I think most of the locations you can actually visit are from the Fellowship as well. So that makes it again more tangible because I've been there, and that's really cool.
Yeah, it's fun. It's the older I get, the more I like Fellowship of the Ring, and it's starting to kind of become I don't know if I could pick a favorite, but it's starting to get, it's just something about it. I think it's the whole, it's the one that started that trope of, the fellowship or your group of and the different guys in it, and going on a quest, and it's just timeless, as and
and it's still light and green, and it feels alive, and of course it makes sense because as the story progresses, they come closer to Mordor, so everything gets gray and dead and stuff. But to look at it, makes Fellowship for me much more enjoyable in that sense.
So we'll just I guess we'll jump to why we're here, the collection and what everyone's liking to see. But just before we kind of get to that, this room you've created is brand new, correct? And
it is, yes.
Kind of just talk us through the process of how you went about making it, and then we'll jump into the tour.
Yeah, well, I have to go all the way back when I had a small collection. I had a IKEA display case, the one everyone has, and then my collection grew, of course. So I bought a second one, and then I bought a different display case from IKEA, which I still have, by the way, which I'll just show. But then I needed more space, and I also did not really trust those little glass shelves in the Detolf, the IKEA one. So I did some research. Of course, didn't want to spend too much money on it, and I bought a IKEA PAX, which I changed a bit. So I put in some plexiglass sliding doors, and that should have been my solution, which I have had for a couple of years. But then I noticed that also the IKEA PAX already started shifting a bit, and I didn't trust that one with my heavy statues. So last year I moved to a new house, and I made a deal with my girlfriend because she didn't want to have the statues in the living room anymore. So I said, that's okay, but then I want the biggest room in the house. And she agreed to that. And that made me have a room of myself where I could do what I want. And I started looking into options because now after this, I'm never going to make another display again. Other than maybe another one somewhere in the corner here, but I'm not going to do this all over again. So I wanted something that will last through time, which can manage heavy statues, which is still adjustable. So I started looking in that. I ended up first at module case because I have one module case which I bought for Gandalf and Frodo on card at the time, which I don't use for that because apparently Gandalf and Frodo on card is 7 centimeters higher than the Weta website says. So I already ordered my module case because they have a delivery time of like 2 years or something, or a year. So it didn't fit. But I looked into module case, but as that is not adjustable because it's just a case, right? That was already no longer an option. Then I went to a local furniture maker with all my demands, and we had with several discussions for a process of several months. And then I think like 2 months ago, they built the one you see behind me. So it's 5 cases, so to say, 4 big ones and 1 slightly less big because of there's a window. Every shelf can carry about 200 kilograms or maybe more. It's a hollow shelf, but it's filled up with wood to make it so that it just doesn't bend. The lighting is going in between, so all the cables are hidden. I still have the option to put the shelf higher or lower. And as Weta now puts in lights in every statue they have, I figured I need some power outlets as well. So I put in a power outlet on every shelf. So there's a lot.
Good idea.
Yeah, and that was basically the process. And then they came back to me with a question, okay, which color do you want? And I had no idea. And I have several black furniture pieces here. So one is the IKEA piece I have a module case. And then he showed me a picture where there was like a black case with some nut wood. And I figured that's cool. So in the end, I decided on that. Didn't look at any other options. And it looks really cool, in my opinion. So that was basically the process. It was very difficult getting it all together.
No doubt. I'm a big fan. I think wood and Lord of the Rings statues, like wood green, they just look great together. You know, it feels more Tolkien-esque, more Middle-earth-like.
Yeah. I think even the most difficult part was because I didn't want to have the sides of the cabinet to have holes like in every 5 centimeters. If you buy an IKEA cabinet, of course it has. And I didn't want to have that because, well, you're never going to put a shelf like 10 centimeters from the top because no statue will fit there. Same on the bottom, right? So I went in about and made measurements. Okay, I want regular 1/6 scales between 30 and 40 centimeters to be placed everywhere, but we have higher pieces as well. I only want like 4 shelves per cabinet because otherwise you were left with a small piece. So where do I fit those holes? And that was a puzzle in itself. And I changed many times. But in the end, it came up to this. And when they were building it, they had everything pre-made so they could just install. Even at that time, I just asked them, "Oh, can you maybe drill a hole here because I want to fit my Gandalf there?" And that's what they did. So there's one cabinet with an extra hole where now Gandalf is sitting.
Yeah,
the one you actually didn't see in the picture. Remember?
Well, let's take a look at it.
Yeah, I'll take my phone. Turn the camera around, if that works. So where shall we start? At the door, right?
Sure. Where every adventure starts.
So let's start at the door. I just this week I put in the Hobbit wall decal, and right next to it
that's a window.
Well, that's a window, yeah. Oh, and then after the Helm's Deep, can you see it? The
kind of
poster where you can look inside. It's a bit blurry and it's reflecting the lights, of course. But it's I got that one from one of the Flame of Rudon members as well. I bought a Rivendell from him, and he just said to me, "I have a poster left. Do you want it?" So, okay. So now it's finally up. It's a beautiful piece. And then I have a small selection of United Cutlery. So there's the Ringwraith sword I just told about, which I bought at that store with 70% discount. And a couple of years ago, I figured I need a Sting and Anduril as well. And I'm still in doubt if I want more swords. I looked at Castlecon several times, but then, yeah, with prices nowadays and statues coming, and I haven't decided on that. So I think statues now are a bit more priority, also because there's only so much wall space. But they really do look cool.
Most people have a hard time stopping at just 3 swords, so I commend you for the willpower.
Yeah, I have a fourth one. I have a fourth one, but that's not United Cutlery. But it's
Okay.
it's money, right? The problem we all face at this time, especially with the prices nowadays. I mean, I just passed on Gilgalad, even though I really wanted him to join my last alliance. But I figured at this price, yeah, I know. Well, we have some idea of what's coming. So I decided not to get in, or at least not in this moment. I did a similar thing with Bag End. And as you will notice, Bag End is here. So that didn't last long. So next, I think even though statues are important, this should be the most important cabinet, right? With books.
Yeah, you got
so lots of movie related books. Here, there's I think it's Gentle Giant Gandalf. I have some cheap knockoffs of the rings. And then the one thing I'm still dreading to read, I read the first one, but I cannot say that I really understood it. The history of Middle Earth. So that's one thing that I think my English is fine, but reading in English and then a work like that, that's so difficult. I mean, especially, of course, well, you probably know, I think you read it, Valchrist. It's not a story, right?
Parts of it? Yeah, no, it's not. It's a process of creating his entire saga.
Yeah, and I think the first one starts with as much as I remember, with like an inn or something, and then I have no idea what happened, but all I thought was, how is this Middle Earth? What's happening? What is this? So I have to spend some time in there as well. So then, of course, the new books with some book sets here as well. The Dutch versions, some old versions. So there's the old one my dad used to have. Also an old set of my uncle and an old set of my parents-in-law. I even one day bought books at the library because they were selling them for €1. I figured that's a waste. Let's get them.
Yeah, no doubt.
Lots of DVDs. And then here's where the statues actually are coming in already.
The very rare miniature of the Fellowship.
Yeah, and the weird thing about that one is I bought 2 of them in a Black Friday sale. But one of the sets, I can't remember which one, I think the first, was already sold out long ago. So I immediately went online and find somewhat decent priced one from the Tolkien shop here in the Netherlands. You've probably heard about that. It's a very small Tolkien museum in Leiden. And he has an online store as well. Not the cheapest, or maybe even the most expensive one, but he had one. So I bought that. Then I have some busts. And fun story about that as well. I looked on Marketplace and I found, I think it was this Boromir. I found him for €15. And the seller actually apparently lived right across me. So I went to his house and he said, yeah, and I have this one. So he came back with the Gandalf and then the Gollum. And he showed me the orc soldier here. And he said, yeah, you can have this one for free because it's damaged. There's a small crack. So I got the 4 of them for €40 from him, which was again a good deal. And then he said, yeah, just come with me. And then he showed me his attic where he had the ring raid on Steed, for instance.
Oh,
which I was able to buy from him for 300 euros. And I got a Sideshow Legolas, and yeah, he had some awesome stuff for very great prices.
no doubt.
So those are my minis, not all of them, but I did not really want to put them in the big cabinet. So I figured, let's put them here in my bookcase. And then I have a small bobblehead Gandalf. This is the John Howie print, coming with the Gandalf on card. This is then my workspace, where I have a picture of me and Sean Astin, and a mini fellowship, which I actually got from the Flame of Udon forum as a prize. Same with the mini epic. I think I got the mini epic orc from a giveaway as well. And Frodo I got in one of the Weta collectas, which I bought in the Weta cave. And again, a funny story. One day I got home and there was a huge Weta box waiting for me, and I hadn't ordered anything. And when I opened it, it was full of mini epics.
Oh yeah.
So I contacted them, and apparently they put my address on an order of somebody else. So I sent it back. But a couple of days later, this Gandalf arrived with a nice note from Alice from Weta saying, "Thank you for your honesty, and here's a gift." So I got that one for free,
Oh,
which was pretty cool as well.
that is nice.
This is me and my girlfriend at Hobbiton, almost 10 years ago already. I've been there in 2014 and 2017. And when I got there in 2017, the no admittance sign actually just fell off the fence. So I put it back on. So I can actually say that I'm the one who put the no admittance sign on back end, which is a funny story as well, I think.
Yeah.
So then back to this side of the room, where I have some of the art prints and a knockoff of the sword.
It's a pretty good knockoff.
Yeah, I think it is. There's just no logo on it. I have no idea who made it.
Uh-huh.
Again, several. So those
Good,
art
yeah.
prints bought at one of those sales, which I haven't bought an art print for full price because I think they're too expensive because it's basically just a print.
Uh-huh.
But sometimes they have nice sales. And they look great, of course. It's this is my Hobbiton cabinet. So there's the module case, which I bought for Gandalf, which now has Bilbo in back end. And plenty of space around it for more. And of course, Hobbiton. Again, I saved some space because I know of the 44 holes, there are still, like, what is it, 30 more to be made.
Is that how many still need to be made?
I think so. I think we have around, well, 14 or something. I'm not counting now, but because I don't have them all yet, because again, I'm waiting for a sale nowadays. Because even those small little smiles are no longer affordable.
So there's still time
Here
to
is
jump in on Hobbit bowls.
yeah. So here is some versions of the ring. Actually, I can open this up. It's probably easier to see. So the one from Weta, and then a silver one which needs some polishing, I think, and a very cheap one, and also the green dragon mug and beers from Hobbiton, actually. The pipes, and then on the other side we have some of the mini statues and the bookends. Those are
Wow.
slightly damaged, but I got a great deal for them. I'm always searching for good deals, and I got them together with Gandalf on Shadowfax. I had to drive to Antwerp for them, but it was worth it. And then, of course, the main cabinet. So this is the wall.
The wall.
The wall. So let's start on the left. Here's a nice little map. If you can see it from Wellington. If you do the Wellington Rover Tour, so location scouting around Wellington, they give you this map, or at least they did 10 years ago. And when unpacking for my new cabinet, I found this one and figured, let's put it up the wall.
Nice.
This is the big wall where, again, the top shelf is about 70% made possible by the Flame of Wooden Forum by giveaways, which I was very lucky to win several. And the helmet I bought at the Tolkien store in Leiden. And then we have the Elven Ladies. I think this is a great shelf because you can see the difference in quality Weta nowadays has. So despite the quality issues the new Galadriel has, mine has slightly turned ice, but overall it's a pretty good piece, and same goes for Tauriel. And if you compare them to the old Arwen and Galadriel, yeah, the difference is astonishing. Even though I still like the old ones, but yeah, especially if you look at Galadriel here compared to the old one then is not Kate Blanchett.
It's Kate Blanchett and your
Yeah.
stardom.
Yeah. It's a great statue still. I was actually tempted to buy the mirror from Carl, but in the end didn't do it. Not even the rerun. Maybe one day. I hope it's visible with lighting, but it's that's the Golem and Smeagol together with Shelob and the Balrog. So what I did try to do is make teaming shelves here, which meant that in the end I got several pieces which didn't fit anywhere. So I put them together, and this shelf is one of those examples. Really didn't fit anywhere else, so I put them together, and I think they look great together. And as you can see, this is actually quite a small cabinet because there's a window here. It couldn't be the same depth as the other one has.
Right.
And of course the width. At first they wanted to do 5 pieces all with the same width, but that meant that I would have less space in the other one. So I figured let's have 4 big ones and then 1 smaller one. And here, some of the old environments. I put my mini Gimli here because I figured if I would have placed him at the top of the bookshelf together with the rest, you wouldn't have been able to see him properly because it's of course it's a low statue. But he looks great together with the old Helm's Deep.
Yeah.
Here's some space to be filled up.
Future considerations.
Yeah. So the awesome doors made by Dr. Malcolm. And at the time when I ordered, I never thought Weta would make them. And then, of course, right before they arrived, Weta announced it as well. But I have to say that I think this one is a bit better. I don't have the Weta one, but this one looks better. So this is where Gilgalad would have joined if I ordered him. So maybe one day, we'll see. And my Sauron actually came with the same problems lots of people had. So I had to, in the end, I had to file out the back. Otherwise, the cape just wouldn't fit. Another great find I actually had here is the Elrond one. Somebody posted him on Marketplace saying this piece is damaged. You can have him for 25 euros. So I bought him, and then he wasn't damaged, but the sword just comes out.
Oh, they didn't realize.
They didn't realize that. So I have a very nice statue for almost nothing.
Yeah, it's a very
Very nice.
underrated statue, I think.
Yeah, and he
Yeah.
fits really nicely with the rest of the guys there.
Mhm.
So here's the new back end. I do love it, but I noticed that some people put a camera in and looked behind the door. So there's actually some sculpting behind the door. So which makes me wonder, did they sculpt more, which we just cannot see, but that they still did add to the price or something? But it's a wonderful piece. It's really big, and yeah, it's of course it's nice that you can have a look inside. And this is my Hobbit shelf with the tea towel. I actually tried ironing it, but I still didn't get the things out.
Mm.
And some of those pieces, I think my silent reflection one never arrived with the stuff. So mine doesn't have the Gandalf stuff. And I looked in the package and I don't have it.
Mm.
It's too bad.
Yeah. I don't really miss it though, if you look at it. So here I have the sideshow Sauron. And mine was actually really tilting. I don't know if you saw the pictures, but he was just leaning backwards a lot. And I was always terrified that he would fall off. His head already fell off several times. Known issue, of course, but as I knew now that I would have a big cabinet with a big display case, I contacted Statue Dog in the Netherlands, and he actually fixed it. And I think he did a really good job.
Yeah, you'd never know.
No. And then one of the highlights, of course, is Gandalf and Frodo on card. Terrible piece to put together. I remember I was one of the first who actually got him, so I was eager to put on some pictures. And then, of course, when I slide in the card, one of the pieces broke. Luckily for me, it's on the back of the horse. You don't see it. But Weta came with an instruction video on how to assemble days after I had assembled him. So that was late. But I did follow it, of course, when put him in this display. Also, but when we had to move, I took him down and broke a piece of the card, but I was lucky enough to be able to glue that. But it's a terrible piece to put together, and I hope he will just from now on he will just stay here and doesn't move.
Yeah, I would think in the future, the more time goes on, the more more broken Gandalf on cards we'll find out there. I think.
Yeah.
People have to move and take them apart and this and that.
Yeah, and so many things I think, why didn't you just do this differently? But yeah, that's me. So here's Rivendell and the new Argonath. I was really happy when they announced the Argonath because I love the small ones, but this has so much more presence than the little ones. And Rivendell, I hope they will bring it back for people who are after it, because it's of course an open edition. So what they did with Minas Tirith, they can now do it with Rivendell, I hope.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I heard a rumor that the molds are actually too difficult or gone for this one, but let's see what they come up with.
Yeah.
So the Hobbit, Elrond, and Saruman. Let's close these doors. Move one over. So there's another grail, which I just told you about. The ring wraith on the steed. Together with Arwen, and I remember having a discussion with my girlfriend when I wanted to buy Arwen, because then at that time it would have been the most expensive statue I ever bought, and I said to her, well, I was never planning on doing something like this, but I just love this moment in the movie, despite the books. But it's then I did it, and of course, as things go, this is no longer the most expensive statue I have.
That changed fast.
Yeah. Then we have the Battle at Helm's Deep, which, yeah, again, I think those pair nicely.
Mhm.
And we have an empty shelf just below, which is waiting for Helm's Deep. Should
Oh,
arrive,
yeah.
of course, in Q4. I have a nice little space saved for him. And maybe I will change something together with this shelf, but of course, those four will never fit together with Helm's Deep, but maybe two of them would join Helm's Deep, or I leave it as it is. I've not decided on that. So here are two sideshow pieces. So again, the Legolas I was able to buy from the guy which actually lived across from me, same as the ring ring, for a nice price. And the Aragorn is one I shared on the forum as well. I bought him from the same guy as the Elrond. So I think I paid 50 euros for him. The bow was broken, and I had Statue Dog fix him as well. Did a great job on that one as well.
Mhm.
And the last one. So those two pieces I actually bought from Danny, who's very active on the Facebook pages, I think. He's not so active on the forum, but he's there as well, and he lives near Leiden, so I bought those two from him. Then the arm and hand pieces. So maybe one day Frodo, the new Frodo, will join. And then
Yeah.
I missed out on Aragorn, of course. I didn't really miss out. I just decided it was too expensive at that time. But maybe one day, probably not, but maybe one day he will join. And I was expecting actually another arm and hand piece based on the things Daniel said. But I
Mhm.
think in the end he pointed towards the new Frodo and maybe the new classic lords.
Yeah.
But I was expecting a Merry and Pippin.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were too. I know I was. I thought
Yeah.
that's what you meant.
So here you have Minas Tirith, Minas Morgul, and Kira Dungul. I think they really look amazing together. And as we already discussed before, it's so cool to finally have Minas Tirith.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a beautiful statue, which I never thought of actually owning before they re-released it, of course. And there we finally have the Battle of Minas Tirith. I did manage to get a Morgul Lord one day.
Yeah, I
Not
was
the
just
one I
gonna
saw
say
in the, yeah,
you tracked one down.
I tracked it down, yes. So that was my collection room. And then at the attic, I have a large storage room where all the boxes are. That's also a benefit of this house, is that I have lots of storage space for those boxes. So this is the room.
That is a
Very
great
nice.
room.
Yeah. I love the cabinets. Did a really good job with them.
Thank you.
Right
So
on.
this is also where I work from home, so it's a good place to sit.
Definitely. That looks well. Thank you for the walk around.
You're
So
welcome.
I was gonna ask you what your first piece was, but we already know that it's the mini golem or
It
Smeagol.
probably is, yeah. At
Yeah.
least the one I can remember.
Yeah. But you did have a lot of art prints, and Valkris was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, it's a difficult one
Yeah.
because I already know
What's your
the
favorite one?
quality. Again, it's a difficult one. I think
Which one's your
I really
favorite?
like the one in Hobbiton. I'm not sure it's called what it's called, but the one where you see Hobbiton, nice and green. I really love that one. But also the newer ones are actually for me the newer ones is the look over Edoras and the Argonaut, which are amazing as well. And one of the things I love the art print that came with the Gandalf and Frodo on card, but there was also a sketch from John Howie announced for buyers who actually bought him at Weta, and I have to say I was a bit disappointed by that. It's a nice sketch, but it's yeah, I expected more of that.
So speaking of favorites, do you have a favorite in your collection statue wise? And do you have one that's your least favorite? I know it's always kind of tough picking those, but
It's tough
we ask
picking
everyone.
indeed. But for a favorite, I would say I think Ringray on Steed, which is just that alone just breeds Lord of the Rings for me.
Yeah.
There are several others which are coming very close. I mean, Minas Tirith, the Bilbo in Bag End, the new Sauron, several of them. Even the Arwen one I just mentioned, because for me it's just an amazing moment in the movie, despite her face, because I don't really agree on the likeness on that one. But no, I think if I had to pick one, it would be Ringray on Steed. I think I mentioned a couple of weeks before on the forum for a least favorite. I think if I ever would have to sell something, the first ones to go would be the Hobbit, Elrond, and Saruman. I think. Just cannot pinpoint why, but somehow they don't really click with me.
Just too dynamic, too much swirling around.
Yeah, and again, and I'm talking about sales a lot, I think, but I bought the Elrond one again in the Black Friday sale for what was it, 40 euros or something. They just couldn't get rid of him. And Saruman I bought in a double deal together with Boromir. And at the time I wanted Boromir, so I chose one. I actually wanted the Uruk-hai swordsman together, but he was already sold out in Europe. So I chose Saruman. And they're both great statues. I mean, they look good, but somehow they don't click with me.
That's fair.
Yeah, and I think many people agree with me on that. So
yeah, it seemed like Weta kind of went at that time. They were kind of going through a phase where they wanted to make everything flowing and really dynamic, and they had to make everything like that. And
yeah,
come on, and I don't know how well, maybe perhaps they've aged. It was a bit of a fad, I think. And
yeah, and it could be, for instance, I only have those two, but if you of course also have the Galadriel, Dol Guldur, and the two ring rates together, they probably look amazing.
yeah.
But I don't have them, so they are just twirling around by themselves in a shelf.
Yeah. They also take up a lot of space with the way that they're posed. So if you get all five, I only have three. I didn't get the ring rates. But at one point I had all three of them together with the Hobbit, Gandalf, and Radagast in the background. So 5 statues. And it actually looked pretty amazing, I gotta say. I wasn't able to keep that display like that for very long. But yeah, if you have just one or maybe even two like you, I could see how they sort of just look out of place. But if you do manage to collect them all and have them together in a scene, it does look pretty spectacular. But I think also the association with them being from the Hobbit movies, which aren't quite as popular with a lot of the fans, maybe that kind of detracts from their appeal a little bit in your mind. But yeah, I've toyed with the idea sometimes of like, should I just sell mine? Like Elrond especially is so difficult to find a spot for. I tried to put him in one of I have 3 Detolfs, and he's just like I think like a quarter of an inch shy of you being able to angle him in there. And it's so annoying because otherwise he has to sit on an open, like I don't have cabinets as big or as deep as yours. So he doesn't fit in a billy, that's for sure. So he has to stay on somewhere that's open. So that just from that point of view alone, it's a pretty annoying statue to own.
Yeah.
So
I actually, so are you not afraid with the dead off that it collapses?
Yeah.
Or maybe from
I
now,
tried to
now on
put,
because I said so.
well, I haven't heard of the detail collapsing. I've heard of some of the, I can't remember who it was on the forum one time that said that the rectangular glass shelf on the billy had collapsed. I think maybe it might have been Frodo Eyes, or maybe he was just commenting about it, that he was scared because he's got a lot of them on displayed like that. Because I do too. I have 3 billies, and so six glass shelves overall in those. But I tend to go with, like, I'll put like a small Hobbit statue or a Hobbit hole, or just try to strategically put the lighter statues on the glass shelves. But yeah, it does make me a bit nervous. But I've Elrond and Saruman from The Hobbit, for example, they're fairly hefty individual statues. And I've put them in there. Well, not Elrond because you have to come back out. And but I've looked, and you tend to see whether, like, glass does have a little bit of flex to it. And so if you start to see signs of that, it's time to pull stuff out.
Yeah.
And I've had them pose in there for years, and maybe I'm just tempting fate, but nothing's happened. So to answer your question, yes and no.
I actually heard that it's not based not just the glass, but also the small metal bar where the glass is on top of.
Oh,
for that one, they break down.
Yeah, if they weren't soldered on properly, yeah, it could.
Yeah. Not to make
I haven't
you
set mine up, and now
nervous.
you're making me nervous.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I actually also looked into Besta. Besta from IKEA is also quite a good option, especially if you just buy the smaller ones because they are just boxes. They're really sturdy. But for me, it wasn't an option because they don't allow flexibility or even bigger statues in, of course.
Right.
So that was a downside.
I think the Ringwraith on Steed is a solid pick for a favorite. It's just a classic, iconic.
Thanks.
It's such an iconic pose, though. Like, it's just timeless. It's such a great, and I think actually, when you watch the behind the scenes, DVDs there, the guy that does the storyboards, I think you see that very similar pose of a Ringwraith on Steed just in his office there. So like that kind of pose to me, it's very reminiscent or harkens back to just like the design concept that Weta did for the movies.
Right.
And it's funny because, for instance, Escape of the Road, the Master Collection, just didn't click for me. It didn't have the same feeling, despite being pretty much, well, it's not the same pose. In my opinion, it should have been a similar pose, but it just didn't click. But just this statue by itself, great presence. And when we were in New Zealand, we did the tour around, I think it's Mount Victoria, so the park inside Wellington where they shot all those scenes. So we've been to the place, of course, from Escape of the Road. Actually, again, funny stories. We were walking around in that park, and then we went to that place where the Escape of the Road was filmed, and we just walked further, and there were some schoolgirls filming inside the forest, and they asked us if they were doing a school project, and my girlfriend and I were walking there, and they asked us if we could join, and they were filming the Escape of the Road scene for their little school project. So I actually told them, you do know it's like 100 meters that way, right? Yeah, we know, but apparently now I'm a hobbit in some schoolgirls project in New Zealand. I've never seen the movie, but we played along, and it was fun. Yeah.
Nice.
And just to go back to your Ford scene there, I noticed you don't have the newer ring rate at the fort? Is there a reason for that?
Money. I
Of
did.
course, about
Yeah,
the big one.
as I
Yeah.
said, the Arwen was the most expensive statue at that time I ever bought. And when the ring rate came, I just figured I cannot buy another one for this price. I know I was wrong in the end, but yeah, at that time I figured it's just not worth it. And I did look into it for, I think one guy was selling it on the forum. I actually wanted to jump, but the timing wasn't right. And then it was sold for a great price. I think it was Bishop. But then, yeah, maybe one day. So there's no really, because I do like it less, of course, than the ring rate I already have. But it's a great statue. And I'm also still on the hunt for the Mouth of Sauron. That was the one piece I really wanted to have at the time of joining at the forum as well. And I've never been able to find a decent priced one because I'm not willing to pay the prices it goes for.
Fair enough.
And that's especially now with the new Gilgalad. Despite my limit keeps increasing because I said, no, I'm never going to pay that. Okay, never going to pay that. And then that increases, of course. Then there was one outlier, which is the Gandalf on card. While a year ago, I was sitting there with Treebeard in my card thinking, no, I'm not going to do this. And I just cannot, it doesn't make sense. And a year later, I bought Gandalf within a heartbeat. I didn't buy any of the other master collections, but it's a shifting line. But I do feel, for instance, Gilgalad now, it's way overpriced. I really want him, so maybe if he's out and he's available at a retailer for slightly less than Weta actually does, but because with Weta you earn Weta dollars, but in the end you're still paying for them, of course. So their price is a bit higher. You do get a 15% discount, so to say, on your next statue actually. But so no, I maybe Gilgalad will join the Last Alliance one day. But I do feel a bit priced out now. And I think I'm not the only one. Well, definitely not the only one.
You're definitely not alone there. Definitely
So
not.
did you order him? I know Tyler did, but did you order him, Dockers?
I did, yeah. It's just I mean, I feel like a bit of a hypocrite if I, I've been banging the drum for this statue for close to 20 years, and then he finally shows up, and then I just let it go. But I'm not gonna lie, it was very, very difficult because I think he is very much overpriced. I'm not really sure what they're thinking with the price jumps. I mean, it's just not keeping pace with reality, essentially.
No, I expected the $50 jump compared to Elendil, but this was 150, I think.
Simply too much, and I feel like they're in a way taking advantage of people's desire for either the character or the completion of the scene that they created, and so it's a bit of like emotional blackmail, like, here it is finally, how much are you willing to pay for it, kind of thing. And so yeah, I kind of told myself this is I know Tyler keeps joking
Till
with me
Denethor
about you just wait till Denethor shows up, which is another one that I've been waiting forever and a day for them to release. And
but you know Weta loves LED, so it will be a burning Denethor.
Well, that'll make it very easy for me then, because I will for sure not buy a flaming Denethor. No way I'm accepting anything that represents that silly scene into my collection. So that would be a real shame. I almost feel at this point that I almost prefer that they did him in the 110 scale, because then I could at least have a representation of him in my collection and not, have to sell the house to get it. But even those the price of those now is basically what a 1/6 statue. I know, I get it. It was 20 years ago, the Sideshow Weta era. But for statues that we used to be able to pick up for $75, they're getting close to $200 now. It's amazing though, the minis, how
It's
much
crazy
they've
how much
climbed
they
as
go
well.
for.
For the,
Just
the Hobbit holes is just, it's
yeah, I
just
just don't think
too
the
much.
value's there anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy how much the
So
minis go for on secondary, especially some of the long sold out ones like Gimli on the Uruk-hai or Strider, Arwen, Sam and
Yeah.
Frodo. Like those, or the Moria orc, like the mini long sold out mini ones, they go for big bucks now.
And they are available. They have been available for a long time.
Yeah.
And when I was at the Weta cave, they were just stacked up on the wall, and there's so many of them.
Yeah.
And that's what I said. Same for the Hobbit holes and the mini ones. Despite how much I like them, I will only buy them in a sale. And especially because nowadays Weta doesn't have any 1/6 scale statues to put in a sale. So in the end, we will always have mini epics, mini statues, and Hobbit holes in a sale. And we know if we're patient enough, they will be there. So that's what I vowed for myself, never buying them at full price anymore. Which in the end, if they're on sale, they're still more expensive than the first Hobbit holes I bought, probably. But yeah. But I was actually positively surprised with the price of Helm's Deep or the new Minas Tirith, which was the same price as Minas Tirith was actually. So I was positively surprised on those.
yeah, that did come in at a bit of a surprise. For me, I commented on the video that we did on it. Something seemed a little strange about the scale of it to me. The proportions didn't seem quite right, but even at the cheaper price than what most of us expected, it was still a bit too much. And it's also like a lot of these pieces require so much space. They're such big bases. It was the same thing with Bag End. Again, not only was it expensive, it's quite a bit of a space investment, and there's only so much of that we all have. So
unpacking Bag End is a time investment. Because I don't know if you've seen the tree. The tree was packed with small styrofoam. And I've just been picking it for like 15 minutes before I got it
out. And then you always miss one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously we're all kind of slowing down a bit and being very choosy. And you're saying like you got to wait for sales now. And you did say you have. So Helm's Deep is the only thing you've got coming? Is that the newest? What will be the newest arrival in your collection?
Yeah, at the moment it is. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm actually thinking really hard now, but yes, that's the only thing I've actually ordered.
Is your girlfriend gonna be watching this?
No, just putting the kids to bed, and maybe she's watching, but not the whole thing. Yeah, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, not to get you caught. Right on. So tell us about these custom cabinets. Would you recommend going that route? If possible?
If possible, yes. For several reasons. One, of course, is it gives you exactly what you want. You don't have to worry that it will collapse one day. At least assuming that the furniture maker you choose actually knows what he's doing.
Right.
And they showed me, for instance, my shelves. They put it in between. They've stood on them with two guys, showing that it did not bend. So they thought of all those things. They put in so each shelf is held by 4 little pins, and each pin can carry around 50 kilograms by itself, maybe more. So each shelf should be able to at least get 200, 250 kilograms, which I hope I will never have to put in there. But I figured statues are becoming more heavy as they go. So what if you put 4 heavy statues, if it fits size-wise? But what if you put them together? What will happen? So I didn't want to have that risk. And in the end, it's a lot of money, but also not so much, in the sense that look at what we pay for our statues. Look at what kind of value you have here. So all these cabinets together are maybe, well, I cannot buy 4 debt marshals for it.
Right.
So, but it's slightly over 3 master collections.
Yeah.
So
But it's worth it, you know, I think.
yeah, and I mean, if you see the figure on paper, like, okay, please pay 8,000 euros for this, then okay, it sounds like a lot. But in the end, then when you start thinking, okay, I have that piece, I have that piece, I have that piece, this is coming. And if you add it all up, there's so much money just inside the cabinets. Then I would definitely argue put them in decent cabinets where you can enjoy them. And if you have the space, if you have, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we spend so much money on these collectibles. You want to be able to put them somewhere where A, they're protected, and B, you know, they're going to be shown off the way they were meant to be shown
Yeah.
off, you know, and so certainly, yeah, and I agree, a worthwhile investment.
And you will always think of, oh, maybe I should have done that, or maybe I should have done this, and you will still keep that. And my girlfriend also told me, I know you, it will never be finished. I mean, you have your setup now, but look at it in 2 years, probably more statues have come, and there would have been shifting statues, or
Yeah.
for instance, Helm's Deep. Maybe I'm still thinking how I'm going to do that, because Helm's Deep looks great on the front, but there's a lot going on in the back. So maybe you should put in a mirror or something, or no idea yet.
If you're like Ben, you'll buy 2.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not going to do that. And my cabinet's not big enough for a turntable, so no, I'm not going to do it. Yeah.
Shout out to Ben there. Fun stuff.
So
yeah, that's one of the fun things.
I know.
About collecting, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, I was just saying, one of the fun things, your collection's kind of always updating and changing, and you're moving things around. It's one of the fun things about it.
Don't want to do it too much, because I always dread handling those statues. Because no matter how careful you are, somehow you always break something.
Mm-hmm.
And then you just see the assembly videos of Leonard or Daniel, and they're just like la la la, handling things, and oh, the card this, and I think, what are you doing? And he's just holding his
they make it seem so easy.
Richard Taylor on a base like this, moving it around. I figured, it's just loose on there. Please hold it. What are you doing? Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Oh, because if they break it, they just got a whole warehouse full of them. They go, just bring another one out. So, but
yeah, it was already the 4th time they were filming that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about regrets. Obviously, Gilgalad's still fresh in your mind. Sorry.
Yeah.
But before that is a collectible that you really regret passing on, that you wish that you kind of sneak onto eBay to look at once in a while, or you wish you'd gotten it.
Yeah, I think one of them would have been Aragorn at M&M. But again, I'm not willing to buy eBay prices for him. But so I'm sort of looking for him, but usually just immediately, okay, not going to do that. But Aragorn, I think Weta made a mistake there with the low edition size. Lots of people would have wanted him, I think. But again, Aragorn was a piece at the time, was overpriced. Compared to today's market, it would have been, well, it was a correct price, I think, but at that time it was way too expensive, which was the reason why I passed. But yeah, to make the scene complete, that's one that I regret. But what I regret overall is I've been looking at the Weta website for years. Also at the time when I wasn't really actively collecting. And there are so many pieces that I missed out if I would just have jumped at that time, like Barad-dûr or Minas Tirith, which I now have, but that was one. There were so many Black Friday sales where I bought nothing, where I could have bought everything, so to speak. So that's in general a bit of a regret, but yeah. Sometimes I try to find them in secondhand market, and sometimes it actually works out, and not always.
Have you thought of using the Classic Series Aragorn kind of as a stand-in, or I know he's got the Van braces, so it's not correct, but
I didn't
has it not crossed your mind?
I thought about it, He's still on the list to maybe one day in a sale.
Yeah.
But no, I'm probably not going to place him in the same scene.
Yeah.
I don't know where I would place him in this setup, but I do really like it. I'm not completely sure about the face, but I think in person they say it looks good.
Mhm.
So, but no, I don't think I will put him as a stand-in.
Mhm. Fair enough. So, having collected since, well, you really started what, 2017 kind of? It was when you really,
Really, actively, exponentially
yeah,
growing. Yeah.
yeah. So you've been collecting for, a couple of years now. What advice would you give to new collectors getting into the hobby?
Well, new collectors, I would just say don't do it because it's a it's a rabbit
Everybody
hole.
says that.
Yeah,
Yeah, unless you
don't
won the
do it.
lottery, just stay away.
Yeah, I see sometimes you see collectors, and I'm always thinking, how the hell do you do that? And
Right.
where do you get the money from? But yeah, they should have won something, or anyway, I don't know. But no, and think about if you're starting. There's so much around, and there's so many companies now. I mainly collect Weta. Actually, only collect Weta with some side steps, like I have some United Cutlery. I do like the custom ones like Carl and Dr. Malcolm make, but I don't want to buy those too much as well because it takes budget away from the Weta pieces. But I would say try to focus on what you want. What do you want to create? Do you have lots of space? Do you want to create scenes? For instance, if you want to create an Amon Hen scene, with weather pieces, be mindful of that. Aragorn is probably not going to happen, or something like that. So be realistic and don't spend too much money on statues on secondhand market just because you really want it.
Right.
Even though I love my collection, but even though in the end it's just a piece of stone standing on a shelf, and it's just standing there and not
Right.
doing
Mhm.
anything. Maybe there's a light in it, but that's it. It's fun to look at, but how often? Well, every time I walk in my room, I'm still wow. But how often are you going to walk over it and just stare at a piece and look at all the details? And from time to time you do it, but you really have to think for yourself: is it worth the money?
Mhm.
Or are you as deep in as we are? There's just no way back.
Yeah, you can't eat polystone, unfortunately. And
No.
I've kind of I've heard other collectors say this too, where it's if you're just patient, those that you're looking for, eventually one will pop up for a price that you're okay with.
Yeah.
It's when you go out and actively are looking and you gotta have it that you tend to spend more than maybe what you should
Yeah.
on a
I mean,
piece.
I've told several examples of pretty good deals I just found by actually going to the marketplace and see what's available, asking. And sometimes I would just send a seller who doesn't have a price, I just send him a message with in my opinion, stupid price. And sometimes they just say, okay, that's fine. And then I have a great deal. And usually they say, what are you thinking? And then, okay, I just tried it. Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's no harm in trying. And
Worth a shot, yeah.
Yeah.
and you see sometimes pieces which I really want, but as I said, I'm not going to pay the prices, the eBay prices for Aragorn or for Barad-dûr or whatever. I would love to have Barad-dûr, but yeah, it's difficult to find. And,
Yeah. Fair enough.
So yeah.
Yeah, well, so we're halfway through 2023, final anniversary year. Trying to think of all the releases so far off the top of my head, and I haven't been a lot. I mean, there was Gil-galad and Frodo Classic Series. There was the mini Morgul Lord on the Fell Beast. What else?
Lurtz, Eowyn,
The what, sorry?
the small Eowyn
that's right.
as well.
Yeah.
There have been a lot, but not so many, or not many big ones that actually stand out.
and not a lot of return.
Yeah,
like
I think
Yes.
Weta tends to save them either like something for Comic-Con or like I was telling Tyler the other day, like they usually back end load a lot of stuff onto the back end of the year. Like unfortunately, like at Christmas, which is when we really don't have money to spend. But out of the stuff that's come out so far, what do you think of it? And is there something that you're waiting for in particular that maybe come out this year?
Yeah, so out of the stuff that's come out, I of course have Helm's Deep on pre-order, which I'm waiting for. There are lots of pieces which are open edition. So yeah, I just vowed to myself, wait for those, even though I want them. Just wait, they will be cheaper. And if not, yeah, it's too bad. But from the things that are coming, I think we all know that the Black Gate is coming. There's a pretty good chance for Theoden on Snowmane. So those two, and those actually made me think twice again about Gilgalad. Yeah, I want the Black Gate more, and I love my Eomer, so I really would like to have a Theoden and Snowmane. And I think both are actually, well, Blackgate's actually sure, because Daniel already told us that it would probably be up for pre-order beginning of this year, I think it was. And so I'm definitely expecting that one to arrive this year. Maybe not at Comic-Con, although I would be surprised. But it will be coming. And somehow, if rumors are going around on the Flame of Wooden, we can usually say by 80% that they are coming. So I think Theoden and Snowmane is a good guess as well. I don't think I will buy the new Master Collection. Again, money-wise, because I love them, but it's so big. It's a lot of money, but it's also very, very big. For instance, you have the Dead Marshes. Just put it somewhere, and it's yeah. Where do you have the space? Even though I have space, I mean, yeah. What are you going to do with it?
Yeah,
So those two from the top of my head. But maybe they will surprise us with, I don't know,
a classic series Sam. Yeah,
classic series Sam. And I think a mini Legolas should come as well, because the small Gimli is apparently in Helm's Deep. And there's, I think you actually mentioned it just now on the forum, right? Or was it somebody else?
It's been mentioned before, but I think Mir in the Mirror mentioned that it was.
Oh yeah.
You know, it's supposed to be that scene, I think, where Legolas asked him if he wants a box, and and so I think that was what Daniel had said. But that one's kind of like, we've been expecting that one for a while, and we haven't seen it. It's probably done.
We're still
for a while, and just a matter of when they can.
And it seems that we're also still celebrating Two Towers anniversary fellowship. So maybe we'll get an Aragorn at Helm's Deep one day.
Oh man,
that would be cool. A Lothlorien environment would be amazing.
Yeah.
It's difficult to guess, but I think, as we also discussed, which movie is your favorite? I think the Fellowship has so much more to offer, because it's still, every time it's something new, and in the Two Towers and Return of the King, of course, as well. But you also tend to visit places you've already been, or which means that if you have an environment, that in the Fellowship there are just more stuff, in my opinion, where environments can be made out of. On the other hand, if you go look at Return of the King, I mean, we have already Minas Morgul and Minas Tirith. We could have an official Cirith Ungol, or we have Barad-dûr, maybe the Mount Doom one day.
So they could do,
there are lots of options.
They could do the Dawn of the Dead. They could do
the city itself, where the skulls come out of.
Yeah, or what's that one with the switchbacks going up it, and they make camp there? Dunharrow. They could do Dunharrow. The Grey Havens. So they do have.
They have options. Yeah, true.
And I like Theoden on Snowmane. Like Daniel's never. I don't know if he's ever officially hinted at. That's a kind of a case where I think wishful thinking is maybe going to work out if you can will it hard enough. That one, I think
Yeah, but I think a similar thing happened with Gandalf and Frodo on cards. At
Yeah,
that time, it was also wishful thinking a lot, and then it was just there.
yeah.
Is it? Yeah,
Because you know
I think
there was
those ideas
moments
do come from something.
there were moments in Two Towers that would have made cool statues, right? But it's
Yeah,
like, well, that character has a better moment, or this character would make for this moment would make for a better statue in Return of the King. So if we're gonna pick, I'd rather the Return of the King moment for this character in statue form. So
yeah.
you know, there's things
Even
like that.
though Weta doesn't always choose the best moments, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Similar for
sometimes
the new
Yeah.
classic Aragorn should have been a Helm's Deep Aragorn.
it should have, because we don't have anything of Aragorn at Helm's Deep. I think Sideshow did a little 1/10 scale diorama,
Yeah,
but there's no Weta Aragorn at Helm's Deep. But we have a lot of Weta, and there's a lot of Aragorns that kind of in his Ranger Fellowship gear. Nothing at Helm's Deep. You know, this last year would have been a great year for that. But yeah, they did the other one instead. So I agree with
yeah.
you on that sometimes.
And I also heard a rumor about a coronation Arwen, which would be cool.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, maybe
Like,
together with Aragorn, but then again, it's not Helm's Deep.
yeah, right. Then you like I know we have the coronation Aragorn, but you know, being the Sideshow one, the face on that one hasn't aged great. You know, I've
No.
seen where they've taken the paint off, and it's a good sculpt. It's just the paint that hasn't
Yeah, but it's
hasn't been
better than the
justice.
Aragorn as Strider one because that's terrible.
Yeah, but then you
Yeah,
get the problem. It's like, well, you have the old Aragorn or Lesar, we'll call him, but then you have the new Arwen, and the new Arwen's going to look so much better when
yeah.
you pair them together. So funny conundrum.
Yeah, it's like she had a plastic surgery facelift, and
Yeah.
he's
He's
So
the
are
new
there
Ranger.
pieces coming that you would expect next 2 weeks? Do you have any other expectations?
I'm really hoping for Theoden on Snowmane. Whether they will release him or showcase him at collect what are they calling that expo, collectible expo. I don't know. They might just want to keep the spotlight on the master collection for big
Yeah,
stuff. We may not get premiums. Maybe we'll get a tease of them. I hope we see them. And
but
then
I heard the
classic
Master
series
Collection
Sam.
will be at SDCC, right? So not at
Yeah,
Collectibles Expo. So probably they have some pieces for
yeah.
Collectibles Expo for themselves.
I'd like to see. I'm expecting to see a classic series statue, and you know, whether that's a Boromir or a Sam. You know, you know, the Frodo and the Lurts. It seemed like they just didn't know when to release those, but whether I would love to see a Sam with the vial up and Sting, you know, telling Shelob to let Frodo go. I think that would make a
Yeah,
great pose for a Sam statue. You know, but yeah, it's exciting to, you know, I'm not really sure what exactly we'll see this year. There's a lot of possibilities,
Mhm.
but it could get delayed into next year. So it's tough to say. But my big one
yeah,
is Theoden. That's the one I want. You know, now that I got Minister,
yeah.
that was the other one I was hoping for this year.
I mean, for me, I almost feel like it doesn't really matter at this point. I feel so priced out of the hobby that
yeah,
part of me almost doesn't want them to come out with anything more because I don't want to feel that temptation and regret of not being able to get it. But obviously, that's not realistic or fair to anybody that's, you know, eagerly awaiting for pieces or, you know, wanting to complete their collections by having other stuff come out or whatnot. You know, for me, Gil-galad was kind of the sort of the culmination of wanting that one character and to be able to complete the Last Alliance diorama.
yeah,
Yeah, but the prices are just really like, you know, you get all warm and fuzzy thinking about these pieces coming out, and then when the price is revealed, it's basically like you're thrown into a, you know, you get a bucket of cold water just dumped over your head. That really
yeah.
just takes away all the excitement and thrill. And so I feel like that's happened one too many times, like literally dampening your enthusiasm for this hobby.
Yeah.
So yeah, I honestly,
No Denethor?
well, I've like now when I think of them again, I think like, what are they gonna charge for a piece like that? You know, everybody seems to want him on his chair, and and they should have the throne behind them. And like, are you guys really wrapping
That's a
your heads
1200.
around how much it would cost for a
It'd be
piece
like
like that?
1200 American, I bet, at least,
Oh,
for
easy,
that statue.
if not more. So if he does come out, I just hope it's like a really simple, almost like a classic series in a sense, like just him standing there in a pretty calm, non-dynamic pose, definitely not on fire, running the marathon.
Yeah.
And even then, I feel like they might just take advantage of the fact that, people kind of wanted this guy for 20 years. Well, then let's charge whatever we want, because if people really want it, they'll pay it. And that,
And it's a shame, actually, that also our discussion now focuses a lot on price. And I've seen several videos come up on YouTube about it, and I think the all discussions on the forum are also focused either on quality or price. And
yeah,
as you say, it's a hobby, and it's so much money. If you try and think rationally about it and add up what you
it
have
doesn't
in
make
your
any
shelf,
sense.
it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
I mean, we're
it
crazy
doesn't.
that we do this, and still we do it. But also, I think, and I don't have the science behind it. I don't know how they make their prices and what they build off and what they pay for actual manufacturing or whatever. But everything in me says make it half the price and you sell twice as many. But that's just my idea. But
Yeah,
apparently it doesn't work
I
like
don't think
that, because I would think that they would do it then.
Yeah. I know everyone
to
wants
understand
yeah.
their reasoning and their formula for deciding on the pricing. I mean, and I get it. You have to pay your artists. The manufacturing costs are up all over the world. Shipping costs have increased. There's so many factors going into it. But yeah, it's like you said, and we've talked about this several times. It's like, so many people don't get statues just because that price is just a bridge too far for them. Like $50, $100, whatever your limit is that you decide at. If they had just priced it a little lower, they could have brought in like 100, 200, 500 more people that were so close on the fence, but just that extra $50 or $100 said no. But when you multiply the number of statues they could have sold by all those people that jumped ship when the price was revealed, they would have recovered and made a profit on top. So
if you see it with Saruman now, Saruman on Throne, I think he's still available again. Yeah. And it just doesn't sell because it's too big, too much money for basically a statue that is this with an environment that's this.
Yeah.
And if you compare Elendil with Gilgalad, they're basically the same. I mean, it's a 1/6 statue, sort of the same base. Gilgalad has a bit more going on there. And it's 150 euros difference or dollars difference within half a year, and not even, almost a year now, but still.
Yeah. Well, and like Elendil came out the same time Gandalf the White came out. I don't think Elendil is any more. I mean, yeah, you could argue Gandalf the White was easier to paint, but they're both detailed. They both have, like, in the sculpting process, it takes time to sculpt fabric too, And yet Gandalf was what, $150 cheaper, and Elendil easily could have been. And so it's the same time, right? So it's not like you can say, well, manufacturing costs have gone up. So, well, no, they were done at the same time. You were paying
that piece of rock that Elendil is standing on, you can't tell me that costs $150.
Yeah,
so
because Gandalf's standing on some rock. So you're literally paying $150 for a limited edition number on the base, is what essentially comes down to.
Excellent. Yeah.
And on the other hand, it also feels like
it's been an ongoing miscalculation on their part. They've been pricing this, and it's like they keep pushing the envelope to see like how far can we push these collectors, and you know, even after all the complaints about Gilgalad, he's still, I mean, I would thought that his edition size would be a lot lower, to be honest. And I mean,
It's still
we're well
fairly
past the days
bit
of
lower, I
things
think.
being over 1,000. Sorry?
Yeah. No, he is indeed a lot lower than Elendil, but not as low as I thought it would be.
Yeah. Is that the
Yeah.
same
Be
thing with
around the
Sauron?
likes of Leaf Lock, for to be honest.
Yeah.
But I think that just continues to send the message to Weta that, you know, there are people out there that will pay these kind of prices. When you take that price and you multiply it by the number of units that they're going to sell, it's a nice number. I don't know how much of that is profit for them, but it's still a nice number to any of us. And but if they take the temperature of collectors online and they go on Facebook or on the forum or chat groups or watch, you know, watch something like this on YouTube, and there are many collectors like us out there putting videos and having these discussions. I mean, if I was in their shoes, it wouldn't be a good feeling to understand that, you know, the main topic of discussion is about the price, or that the likeness of this character was off, or that this cape doesn't fit well, like the quality issues or whatever. These discussions should be about how amazing these statues are, how excited we are to get them and have them in our collection. That should be the overriding topic of discussion. Like the reasons why we all got into this hobby and how wonderful it is and how much we like it and how incredible these pieces are. But when, you know, talking about the price or a quality issue starts to dominate the conversation, I just don't get how they don't. You know, this is one-sided, obviously. Maybe they are having these discussions internally, but if we don't see those changes happening, like a price correction, or, you know, them saying like, we are really trying to do our best to not have quality problems, then there's only one side of the story for us. And so that's how this ends up. And people get turned off and they turn away and they say, oh, there's another company putting out Middle Earth statues. Okay, then I'll give them a try, because maybe they won't be as costly, or they'll actually look like the promo picture or something like that, not something else when we open the box. So it's a bit sad in a way, but
I do think.
But I also feel like there are also lots of statues that could have been way cheaper. For instance, Helm's Deep or Bag End, if they did not put as many details in them. I mean, I like that there is a light in Bag End, but it's not a necessity. I like that Helm's Deep has extra details at the back, but I'm probably not going to be able to see them. So if they would have made it just closed, it could have been $300 cheaper, for instance. And there are many of those examples as well, and I like what they're doing. I mean, they're pushing the envelope for themselves as artists, and what can we do that hasn't been done before? And sometimes it adds. I think the new Master Collection that Martius looks amazing. I think Minas Morgul with lights is amazing. Back End looks great, but there's a lot of detail inside which is pretty much non-visible. And then Helm's Deep, of course, everything at the back, which makes me wonder, okay, we get a black gate, and we already discussed this. I think that what are they going to do? Do they make it, will there be lights in the towers? Or if you press a button, the gates will actually open, you know? Please don't. Just put in a simple environment.
Yeah.
Just like that. No lights, even though I have plenty of power outlets. Don't do it.
I feel like they get carried away sometimes, and I get it. They're artists, they're imaginative people. They want to make the statue the best that it can be, and they're not wrong in thinking that, like, how amazing would it be to have this feature? Like, this will just blow the fans away. And it does. I think all of these inclusions are just amazing, but unfortunately that translates to higher development costs on their part, which they have to pass on to us, and that increases the price of these pieces exponentially. And it's like you said, I almost feel like they should make one piece like that they have like for themselves, for the Weta cave or whatever, that they can show us like this is what we originally wanted or what we could have had. But here is the production model that we're going to sell to the fans and make it affordable. And it doesn't have all of these features. Like it doesn't have a sculpted back or all of these lights inside, because that's not only a very small fraction of us can afford those things. And I know it's been said before that, oh, they should sell two versions.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that a premium,
like a premium version that has these features and one that doesn't. But what people don't think about sometimes is that is incredibly expensive for them, because they have to essentially produce two different pieces. So that doubles. I know a lot of the cost is already there because the bulk of the piece is really just the front kind of thing. So, but they do have to pay for having those other molds and the electronics put in, and they have to create different, art boxes, because it's like this is a different version that you're buying. So there has to be a way to differentiate it for marketing. All of that adds up.
Solution.
So I don't think it would be profitable enough for them to have like a premium version of a statue. Like, here them sell them deep with all the bells and whistles, and we're going to charge you, $300 extra for it. And here is the average Joe version, which is just basically the front kind of thing. That's a great concept in theory, but as a business, I don't think that's feasible for them. So I wish they would just do the cheaper version, because we can no longer afford the fancy versions of everything. So
they should just give us simple environments and then create a museum somewhere with the original bigatures, which are as they should be, and then leave the fancy stuff there.
A part of it too, I think, is in some of these environments that we're talking about, I think part of it is they have to feel like maybe they need to justify the need to go to those locations, collectible form. Like, if we're gonna go to Bag End again, we better add, an interior and lights to justify doing a third Bag End. Or Helm's Deep, we've got to justify going back to Helm's Deep because there's already a Helm's Deep. So we got to make it bigger. We got to make it different to justify it. And so I do think perhaps that plays a factor in some of these environments that have a lot of extra stuff.
I agree, but only to an extent. I mean, just the size alone, to me, is a good enough selling feature, a way to convince not only the new buyers, but also some of us that may already have the older pieces. Because let's face it, with the environments, I feel like, bigger is better, because you get to see a lot more of the detail. Some of them are just, some of the older sideshow pieces are so tiny that you just don't get that sense of the grandeur of the locale. So, and also that a lot of folks did not buy those ones back then. They got in a little later, or they just didn't appeal to them, and their minds changed later on. So anyone buying the Argonath or Helm's Deep or, some of those pieces that are being redone, they just don't have the originals, and they're hard to find or expensive. So that enough, I think, is an incentive. I don't think they need to get like, oh, we're going to, create the glittering caves and have all of these little lights in there. I feel like that's just taking it a step too far. I'm not saying it's not cool, and that aren't people out there that appeals to, but when the cost of that is the massive price tag that we're hit with, that's just something I can do without. That's a trade-off that I'm not willing to, pay for. So
on a happier topic, or a more hopeful topic, let's talk Denethor, who is not a very happy fellow, but if Weta were to come out with one, what kind of poses would you guys like to see? And I know this has been kind of talked to death on the flame, but we had mentioned maybe in a more affordable version of him just standing, or in a simple pose, and the thought had come of when they're marching with the body of or Faramir's body to the tombs there, and he's got that torch, that would make a decent pose for him as well, I think, because that kind of hints at the
Yep.
madness that's taken place within him, but it's not so dynamic, or it's not so much that it's going to be $1,200
I think that
statue.
would be a great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
You can
I mean,
still
for
hear
me,
me,
the
right?
perfect
Because my
statue
ears
of
just fell
Denethor
out.
would be the one that's often discussed is him sitting on his chair, holding Boromir's broken horn, and the look of grief and just that confusion and despair as a father, like when he looks at Gandalf, like what happened? How do you explain this? I think to me that's it's a moment that humanizes the character. A lot of people don't like Denethor, and with good reason. He's basically a monster in the way he treats his other son, and just the things that he says and the way that he behaves. It's hard to feel sympathy for him in any way, but there is, especially if you read the books and you understand the tragedy of his downfall and the things that led to it. I think for me that was a moment in the movie where you can actually feel a connection to the character, just as what he's feeling in that moment. So for me, it'd be perfect to have that. Unfortunately, people tend to get away, and it's like, oh, then they should include Gandalf and Pippin, or have the actual throne of the king behind them. And it's like that's a master's collection piece, and get ready for $2,000 plus for something like that. So if they just did him in the chair with the horn, that would be perfect. I know it would cost a little more because you need a bit more of a base size, and the chair thankfully is not very grandiose or ornate, so that should be a fairly simple sculpt for Weta to pull off. Beyond that, something just him standing, like you said, either with his hands before him or with the torch, something along the classic series statues, I think would be probably a little bit more affordable. To me, those are the only really, feasible options from a cost point of view. And unfortunately, I'm left feeling like it'll still be expensive. Sorry, I'm going back to the grim topic.
They could do that scene after Gandalf hits him in the face with the staff.
No. That's when everything just starts to go downhill.
That's what they'll do. Watch.
Or he's standing in the pyre when he pours the oil over himself, and he's looking all like, "Oh yeah,
what would
this
you
stuff's
like
really
to
good
see,
for my skin."
Celaglar, what would you like to see for Denethor?
I think the simple pose.
Yeah.
Do you even want Denethor? There's the question.
Well, with today's prices, probably not.
Not, yeah.
So, yeah.
But is he a character that you even want in your collection otherwise, or?
Yeah, in a sense, because it would be great to have every main character represented, because a cabinet full of Gandalfs is also not really what I want. And what I at first tried to do in my cabinet as well is make the whole story. So start with the Fellowship, building up. But I already found out fairly quickly that I had way too many Fellowship pieces, and also I wanted to look at, for instance, the pieces which are a bit more favorite than others, so to say, like the new Sauron. You want them in plain sight, right? So you want them on head eye level and not all the way at the top or all the way to the bottom, which filled it up fairly quickly. So the story wise, it really didn't work out. But in completing a story, you want to have every character. So Denethor, for instance, or Grima, for instance, I don't have that one either. It's not something that I'm looking forward to, but would definitely be something I would like to have to complete it. Yeah, I mean, we also have some nameless Roland Guard or whatever, which I like, but a Denethor would make complete sense. you hear me?
Yep. Yeah, I would love
Okay. My in-ears just the battery died, so it switched to my phone, but you can still hear. That's good.
I guess we've been talking for a while.
I did charge them, so should have.
It happens. I'd like to see a Gondorian soldier this year too. I think that would be
That
great.
one, Fountain Guard would be great.
Yeah. Every culture
Amazing
in
piece.
Middle Earth has had their day except Gondor, it feels like, when it comes to the collectibles. So this is the summer of the Return of the King. So hopefully we'll get some Gondorians.
Yeah, I would love a Fountain Guard. That'll be
Yeah.
amazing.
I actually prefer just the regular old Gondorian infantry. As a kid, the wings just never did it for me, but I understand the appeal.
Yeah, for me, I'm daring to say it, but for me, the wing look is iconic. So that's if you think of Gondor, that's immediately something that pops in my head.
Yeah.
But
We're talking two different periods of time though, because that's, if I hear you correctly, you're talking about the Numenorian soldier from the Last Alliance with
No,
the
the
wings on the
Fountain Guard.
helmet.
Talking
Or-
about the Fountain Guard.
Oh, those wings. Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd love a Numenorian from the prologue too. You know, that'd be great. But just speaking Return of the King, Gondorian.
Right.
It's a Fountain Guard or just the regular infantry. Because I think they have some of the coolest armor in all of,
Yeah.
you know, in the films and just in cinema. And there isn't really a great representation of it in collectible form. You know. And every other culture has had
Despite
their
it being non-canon.
right. Every other culture's had their day. We've had Harad, Easterlings, Orcs, Rohirrim, you name it. But we don't elves, but we don't have any Gondorians. So hopefully that changes this summer.
yeah, and otherwise we have the 25th anniversary coming up.
Yes. Yeah, just as everything is settling, the dust is settling from the Return of the King anniversary, which will carry into next year. They'll be doing releases next year. Just as kind of the dust settles on that, we'll have the 25th anniversary of Fellowship of the Ring to look forward to. So
That's how they keep us lured in. We are trapped.
yeah, it'll just be a never-ending cycles of anniversaries, because then it'll be the 30th, and then it'll be the 35th, and you know, then we're hooped.
Yeah, we're doomed.
Yeah. And with that, we will call it a day. Thank you so much for joining us, and
You're welcome. It was nice.
thank you for showing us your collection.
Thanks for being with us.
So we will see you guys around, and I guess if you're in the Netherlands, have a good evening, and if you're in North America, have a good day.
Yeah, have a good day. I think Valkyrus is going to have breakfast, isn't it not?
Yes, yeah. I've had my coffee, but nothing to eat. But that's what I get for sleeping in.
Yeah. So have a good day. It was nice talking to you guys and finally seeing a face with the name.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes, yeah.
Well, good night.